And finally, we are in the playoffs. It was a 5-week journey to get here for these two and everybody else for that matter. And two players who've known each other for 10 plus years and have a crazy matchup against each other. They meet in the round of 12. We have Nicov playing as the Persians. In my opinion, 2024 was a great year for him. He kind of came back into my top 15, top 10, whereas I thought he had fallen away from that. And then you have MbL, who's always been fairly consistent in that top 10, top 15 conversation. Maybe as well had a better 2024 than maybe 2023. And then he is playing as the Malay here.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting because these two have had similar arcs, I would say, in terms of when they've been really good and contending for like that top 5 spot at times.
Yeah.
But then they both kind of fell off at a similar time when I guess like a lot of the younger players started really stepping up. But now, like, they're kind of fighting their way back into relevance in the upper echelons of tournament. So I never really thought about that until right now. But yeah, they've had a similar story.
Ornlu, capture age pauses if I change any stats. And tell me what time you're at, and I'll sync up with you here. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. I am paused at 2:30.
Okay, yeah. But no, I didn't think about it either, honestly. But this morning I was thinking more so about Nikov. And then as I was saying it, I thought MbL was in a similar boat. I'll do the quick countdown now. 3, 2, 1, go. And I wonder what it was for them. I mean, maybe that's a deeper conversation. But again, I just felt like they both kind of started to feel at home with their gameplay a little bit more this past year. Maybe there was some soul seeking. Like maybe MbL was trying to be like everybody else and playing clean and realized, I can't do that. And then maybe for Nikov, well, I've certainly seen some growth in terms of his macro, whereas in the past, I think he'd try and force the issue a little too much and not be able to kill off opponents and then have weak eco. So there's been adjustments for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just sort of, I think they've both realized that it's a combination of, you need a clean, well-rounded game, but also you need to lean into what makes you a good AoE2 player relative to your competition. Yeah, and I think they still do both a really good job. Nikov, clean build orders, good execution, and sort of getting these leads, and of course MbL just doing MbL.exe.
MbL, if you don't kill him, he is one of the most dangerous players in the game, and that's going to be the theme anytime he's in, but especially against Nikov, because Nikov has done such a good job this season when he gets off to that fresh start. And a big part of that for Nikov is the prep. He is maybe trained, I really have no way of verifying this, but I would guess that he is trained more for even group stage than most of the other players in all these groups. So it's definitely a product of practice. And MbL will know. Nikov is going to take leads against me. I just have to hold on. And I think if it gets to that mid-castle age point where they're both stabilizing and adding eco, that's where I'd start to prefer MbL in each game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. But of course, getting into this one now, Nikov already with the more, faster build-oriented Civ, and already with the dock down here, nice and early with the Persians, and he is going to be getting a nice, important early lead over Malay.
Yeah, and surprising because week 1, I would expect someone to not dock on this map. But now we're essentially week 6. Everybody was docking and competing for water, and MbL is just saying, yeah, not really interested. He's not going to dock at all. So this is MbL, maybe a product of preparation. I mean, he's certainly going to switch it up. I will point out, though, that Persians were definitely the more common pick throughout the group stage. Malay were not. But Malay were also insanely strong on virtually every time they were played and can be very dangerous.
Well, I mean, Malay are just kind of a good Civ in general. Sorry. So, yeah, already, I think it's pretty interesting because you're Malay, right? You'd think that if anything, you'd be trying to fight for water right now.
Yeah.
Like, why else would you be picking Malay, right? But, I mean, the map is so open. It's just kind of surprising that you would be playing such a slow Civ in terms of army composition.
I think really well played from Nikov here to not just autopilot and assume his opponent is docking and go to gold to win water here. He actually has been actively scouting that shoreline, has not seen a dock, and I think his initial intention was to send some to gold and try and win the water, but he's not going to do that now. He's going to play more of a land play, and so is MbL. He's going to click up to feudal age here, but he didn't add any fish, and he's going to be later to feudal age.
Yeah, and I mean, normally Malay are going to be 2 villagers ahead when they hit feudal age, but against Persians, that's like a little bit less the case,
Yeah.
especially with those extra fishing ships. So, of course, Malay having that advantage economically over most civs, but with Persians who have far better cavalry options on open maps like this, I feel like this could just be a little bit tricky for MbL.
The thing that we got to come back to, though, is how many times have we said MbL's not playing the meta for the map, right? And then it just comes down to MbL's playing the meta for himself. Win or lose, I think MbL needs to play with his comforts. And he probably did the math and said, I'll maybe be a worker or two behind if he has fish, but it simplifies my game plan a little bit to just stay on land. He'll get horse collar, he'll get bit axe. He's in feudal now, and first spearman's on the way from that barracks.
Yeah, and of course, Malay free infantry armor upgrades, a bonus I absolutely love. And it's just going to be instrumental in helping keep MbL safe early on here.
Kind of interesting. MbL scouted everything but the barracks. Now he sees the barracks, and he's looking for what's beside that, and he sees the range now. That's also interesting because I think Nikov is hoping that MbL's going range as well, and he doesn't see anything from MbL. So both players were desperately seeking that information. MbL just hasn't built anything yet. He hasn't built a stable or an archer range.
He did grab horse collar nice and early, so it's the classic MbL, okay, let's just rely on some spearmen early on and get the farming upgrade and then just try and get that eco going. I mean, look at this, T90, 6 farms before any military buildings.
And this is so dangerous. We see it normally on arena-style maps where they could just get away with the eco upgrades and farms, so they don't need the military buildings. But so far, like, Nikov has not opened that offensively. He's opening for a skirm. That could slowly tickle down these spears, but I think MbL will have time. I expect that building here soon.
Yeah, if he plans on not dying, which, pro-analysis, I think is a good idea. Because right now, the army is coming across the map for Nikov. He has 5 fishing ships, which is far more than you can typically invest in on this map, but you have essentially double the fish to work with because your opponent didn't take any.
Nikov has made this look pretty easy. MbL has forced a lot of walling, which is pretty annoying. The wall on the wood line, there on the berries. MbL's not really killing anything, but he did. He was aggressive enough that Nikov got housed, so that is definitely a factor there. And here's the trash army. MbL is adding scouts behind this, but he's got to fight this off with villagers, and now it's Nikov's turn to be annoying.
It just feels like so reckless to not wall in your wood line here. I know there are the skirmishers there, but the skirmishers obviously dealing very little damage. You can buy a lot of time. But then you go for a stable on top of it, and scouts are going to be the slower developing army composition anyway. This just feels, again, really greedy from MbL, when we typically see him play, if anything, too safe.
Yeah, I think, maybe he just wasn't expecting this many spears. It's kind of crazy that Nikov has added this many spears without ever seeing a stable, but maybe Nikov thought logically about it and said, if he's going archers, I'll have a couple skirms, and then the other thing he may open when he sees skirms is scouts. And so Nikov, off to that hot start we expected from him, snipes the Vil, and it is just shaky for MbL right now.
Yeah, it's definitely not the position he wants to find himself in. Already down around 600 resources. That really stings. And yes, Nikov's eco has been made a little bit awkward at home, but he's Persians, he's got the faster working TCs, and it feels like you can just sort of eventually get yourself sorted.
This was, there was a theme for MbL in the previous set. He was nervous against Dogal because he felt as though he might not be able to make playoffs, and that there was a chance that he could even get relegated, which is crazy because MbL's had a good season, but he spoke very, very clearly about how he was more worried about becoming a gold player. And so he told me, he's like, I was so shaky in the first game, and then he lost against Dogal. So I wonder if part of that shakiness is here in the playoffs for him right now.
Well, I mean, he's got this game to sort of get himself sorted, so, I mean, a best of 5 gives you a little bit more runway, but it's not a best of 21, right? You still need to win every single game you can. Nikov with 25 villagers on food right now.
That's crazy.
I mean, if you would mark it down soon, and you're off to Castle Age.
Yeah, now, I guess, 5 of what's on food is still the shorefish, but that's still something that MbL's never even had a taste of here. And Nikov just needs to head to gold. I really like how many units Nicov has made. I feel like against other players, he wouldn't have made 6 spears, 8 skirms. But he knows MbL does that. And that can be frustrating. So he's just preemptively kind of matched the amount of army that MbL would typically add here. And that bodes well for him.
Yeah, and what I really like here from Nikov is that you can play with a degree of confidence knowing that you'll be ahead in resources because you have water control. And if you're both just making more or less generic trash units, just having more resources means you can afford to invest more stuff into army, and you can still keep pace economically. You're not going to fall behind in the Castle Age timing. And I just feel like it's a really smart adaptation to the player that Nikov knows he's up against.
Yep, agreed. And I also like the no-risk tower thought here. It's likely that MbL's eventually going to get some damage in with how these games tend to go. He has the lead right now. I remember on the Rocky Forest game, as Nikov's got an exposed Vil, and he will lose it. Okay. But on the Rocky Forest game, he went for like a really clutch play to build the defensive castle instead of a middle castle. Talked to Nikov later, and he was just like, yeah, man, I knew I had the lead. It wasn't ideal to back up with that castle, but when you have the lead, you have to keep it at this level. So well played. That Vil down's not the biggest deal. And MbL's... You could argue it's worse for MbL because he had to pull so many villagers to quick wall and chase. Just, he's in a messy spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, with Malay here, and when he's likely to click up, he'll still likely get a competitive Castle Age time, but that's not really where Malay want to be. They don't want a competitive Castle Age time. They want a blow you out of the water Castle Age time.
100%, yep. And maybe what MbL can hope for is killing off this army right now before it's upgraded. I'm still not even certain Nikov's really going to prioritize upgrading these, but certainly having them around for later on could be helpful. But his eco, like, have you ever seen an eco set up for 2 stable knights like this? 1,000 food and 300 gold in the bank for Nikov.
This is the knight eco from any player who forgets their second feudal age building and then just has a ton of resources banked up for double stable knights when they hit Castle Age. Come on, T90, you're the low elo legends caster.
Or the eco that someone has if they are like 6 villagers late to gold, which was the case for Nikov here. He could have actually been Castle Age way faster. But there he goes. He makes it. And normally there's some decisions on how you spend your res here. Do you get Bowsaw? Do you get Heavy Plow? Do you get armor? He can kind of do everything. And he's actually going to go Elite Skirm too. But I want to see Nikov abuse the fact that MbL is exposed. There's a wood line on the front that's not walled. There is a wood line on the hill that isn't walled. He has to hit those spots with those knights.
Yeah, and he is already sending them forward across the map, and that is stable number 3, T90. So this is exciting. It looks like Nikov is listening to you through time and space, and MbL needs to get these TCs down pronto status. They are right in those exposed areas you mentioned, so good positioning, but this is still going to be a very tough hold.
Yeah, and I like the Elite Skirm choice because that can really help against any excess spears, but also against the archers MbL's trying to switch to. It can even help against monks, so the skirms are definitely a factor here. And Nikov has just kept them alive and works his way through. But I can't help but circle back to what we said before. MbL's only lost 1 Vil. He's killed 1 Vil. He's in Castle Age, and he's on TCs. So this is MbL right here. If Nikov can't do some significant damage, this could get dangerous.
Absolutely. You got Bodkin coming in. You got Husbandry coming in. It's refreshing to see Persians played, not with Cav Archers and just the more classic Knight Skirm army composition. But Nikov, of course, he knows about the TCs. He's going to add 1 at the front. But he still has such a large pillow to work with in terms of extra resources, so he can afford to be a little bit slower in adding those extra TCs.
I feel like if there was ever a time for a Siege Workshop, this would be it for Nikov. That TC from MbL on the front, very vulnerable. The wood is exposed. The TC could be ranged, and MbL's making it difficult to do any massive damage elsewhere. So nice shot from Nikov to make MbL work. But Nikov's got some decisions to make because he might also want to think about the 3rd TC, seeing MbL's on 3.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider, although, of course, like Persians with 3 TCs, it's really hard to sustain those plus make army, especially because Persians just have such an expensive army. So I really like your idea of the forward siege workshop, I think even more than the 3rd TC, at least in terms of order of operations, because you still have an opportunity to get damage done to MbL, so if you're Nikov, take it.
I like the additional skirms for now, too. Just doing what a siege workshop could do, at least to the Vils, chipping away at the Vils. And Nikov's just so active here. I mean, this is the Nikov that you'd love to see Not shaky at all with the eco balance either. Maybe might think he has a little bit too much on golds, but he could spend that eventually if he drops that Siege Workshop, and he's still a 10 worker lead over MbL right now.
Something that, when it comes to someone like Nikov or someone like Dogao, you sort of see hints of like why they're such good team game players, even in their 1v1 play, because you just see how active Nikov is with his units and making sure that he is sort of paying attention to where exactly he needs to be on the map at any given time, just like you would if you're trying to coordinate armies in a team game.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, maybe you think I'm crazy there. That's okay.
No, I kind of get it. And you could also potentially see why MbL may struggle in team games more so than some of the other pros, because he's not as quick to the timings, right? And like streamlining the upgrades on, say, Archer play. He's more of the slow cook type of guy. But 3 TCs now for Nikov. Did use the market there. But again, I mean, he's got the lead right now. But I still feel like a Siege Workshop would add so much value on that town center. MbL would have to add his own Siege Workshop. That gets extremely awkward to do because there's not a lot of space to build. But as always, anytime someone's not adding that extra step, it's because managing the 3, 4, 5, 6 things they're doing constantly right now is already taking a lot of their time.
I mean, this is, of course, just such a tough situation to play on a map that you cannot fully wall, and it has that high ground dynamic. And yet, as we're saying, MbL isn't actively dying, which there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
Getting a few battle elephants out here as well is always, I think, such a good idea with Melee, is just so many stats for so few resources.
If he gets up to maybe 6 elephants and 5 monks, certainly good enough to swing a fight if things go his way. The elephants can kill off some skirms, and then the monks could potentially snipe 4 or 5 knights there. The whole army would fall apart for Nikov. This is actually getting kind of dangerous. Nikov might need to consider his own monks. And wow, I think he's running to the hill expecting the monks to be there. And they are there, but MbL is just going to hop right back in that TC every time. So Nikov needs to back away. He will kill off all the random skirms from MbL that I kind of forgot existed. But ballistics now for Nikov.
Yeah, still rounding out that Knight plus Skirm army composition. Still is missing Bloodlines, which is definitely an upgrade I would recommend. But there's the Siege Workshop finally coming in. I mean, but it's not like Nikov has been playing passive, right? So the most important thing is that he's still keeping MbL's life miserable.
Yeah.
And despite MbL's extra TCs, the eco difference, the resources collected difference, rather, is climbing still steadily in favor of our Argentinian player.
I think a factor that could become really important here is the scouting or lack thereof from Nikov on the left. That is a great area to expand to, but he is primarily expanding through the middle. So if he takes a bad fight and then MbL takes that position, maybe some big problems here for Nikov. And this is not something you see every day. We actually have an early tower here from Nikov on his Siege Workshop. I think this is him respecting his opponent and knowing that a mangonel war against MbL is just too dangerous.
I mean, it's like one of those situations where Nikov certainly has the micro to win a mangonel war against MbL, but you never really feel that great going into it. MbL's continuing to develop his army, 24 crossbowmen. Still doesn't have the university for ballistics yet, I believe. But, I mean, it's still a very strong, entrenched position here for MbL.
Classic MbL AI army. I mean, look at all of that in one part of the screen. And MbL's on 4 TCs as well. The university's on the way up. I mean, this army can get much stronger for MbL. And Nikov has been primarily booming. He hasn't produced many more knights here. Finally, the siege is going to come out. But I like this from Nikov. Separate MbL's armies and focus. Move your knights somewhere else. And then put the skirms and the siege on the front.
Yeah, try and spread out MbL's army. You have the mobility advantage with your cavalry. The archers all need to be in one blob. The monks are slow. I like this idea a lot. You still have to be careful for sure, but this is what you're looking at. Now MbL is starting to lose some more villagers.
Uh-oh, Nikov has to be really careful. See, this is, again, just... It does make your own life more difficult. And elephants could come take the siege. The siege alone from MbL could maybe deal with this. So Nikov has to be really careful. And, oh, man, he's paying attention there. That was a sick attack round attempt. MbL saw it, and those knights looping all the way back around to the main fight.
Yeah, the gate over to the west is also a cute little move there from Nikov. The knights are at least making MbL's life continuously uncomfortable. And just, we've never had to look at Nikov's base this, entire game. Ever since, I guess, that early Spearman in Feudal Age. And this is just allowing our blue player to have so much more streamlined of an eco, plus, like a third of the idle TC time of MbL.
This is the beauty of playoffs, right? The players are clearly so evenly matched. It's 138 population for both players right now. The fight could still easily go either way. Nikov has to respect the monks, and he backs away, and I'm like, I'm freaking out right now, Ornlu. These armies are crazy.
I mean, it's one of those fights that, because you have so many mangonels, like, stuff could explode very quickly. Some conversions could be enormous, and you just have to be so careful here as each player, and I don't blame them at all for not wanting to be super excited to take an engagement, but MbL is going to click up to Imp first as Malay. Wow.
Yeah, it's finally now a moment where you're thinking maybe Malay find their timings. It wasn't in feudal, it wasn't in castle, but it could be an Imp. MbL has done a great job, even against Elite Skirm and Siege, of keeping his crossbows alive. He will lose 2 monks. He will lose a mangonel. That's insane, Micro from Nicov. But MbL will be an Imp. The Knights, though, gonna move around again for Nicov.
Yeah, and as MbL says to the Persians, look what they need to do to mimic a fraction of our power. Only the 15% faster working PCs.
It must be frustrating if you're Nikov to see it, too. And it always is when you're up against Malay, because you feel like you've done enough to be way ahead. And against any other Civ, you probably have. But against the Malay, they're still going to be able to hit you. But it is a healthy Vil lead for Nikov. He does have 1 relic. He does have the Knights to get some Vil picks here, too. But I think the middle of the map is still the biggest point of this game. And MbL's going to castle on his hill. That's really close to the middle action here.
Yeah, I mean, I love this positioning here from MbL. It's sort of in this promontory here, I guess. Sort of jutting towards the middle of the map. It opens up a potential route for you to attack your opponent, and it's just going to be really important in maintaining the high ground. Still, I just have to keep on circling back to my concern is that mobility advantage from Nikov as this game progresses and as they have to expand further and further away.
And my issue for Nikov is actually gold access. He can't take these golds. It's actually 2 neutral golds that combine together. That was just denied by crossbows. He is going to locate some other golds on the left side. But something to think about. And yeah, he's trying to use the mobility. Sometimes the best thing you can do against someone who's trying to use mobility like this is just avoid it. No, tell your villagers, hey, sorry, some of you are going to die, but that's for the greater good here. I need to go kill him. And if he breaks through this house with Arbalest and gets through, this could be strong. But Nikov's got some mangonels there.
Oh, but the mangonels are all stacked on top of each other. Oh, MbL already getting the 1-for-0 trade, and this game is starting to get really messy. MbL's army is fantastic, but is it very good at destroying a ton of buildings quickly? I mean, the elephants are pretty decent at that, but can you do that before Nikov just runs you over with all this cavalry?
Yeah, Nikov doesn't have Cavalier, though. He doesn't have Cavalier. His eco's kind of stuck right now, and he does have the 7 Knights in queue. But MbL is going to rush down this tower. MbL's kind of doing what we said. He's using all of his new army to clear up the raids. He will kill a lot of the skirms. He has lost 30 Vils. He is down to 90, but that should tell MbL in his mind. That just means I have to push even further. The more I lose, the more aggressive I have to be. He's even bringing a Treb up this hill. This is Nikov's starting area, guys.
But there is Cavalier coming in, and this is also where those very tanky Persian TCs can come into play. Just buy time. It's really all you need to do right now is Nikov. He's gotten so much damage done with these raids, but he needs to mass army. This is 60 military from MbL. The elephants have no upgrades except for +1 defense, and yet they're still going to be very scary to all these units. But here we are, again, using that mobility.
It's still not Cavalier, but it's also not Arbalest yet for MbL. So MbL's Treb goes down. I can't help but feel like the elephants actually add a lot of value here, though. And Nikov has to back away. That's still a lot of crossbowmen. Let's not forget, MbL has all that army he just used to defend. MbL's got 17 elephants on the map, Ornlu. It's just a lot of them are back at home. So if MbL can gather up what he needs and get forward here, amazing scenes for him. But now Nikov will find another raid with the Cavalier on that TC.
Oh, and it's so good to see him so active with this army. It's exactly what he needs to do. MbL takes a couple of nice trades there against a Mangonel as we have a forward castle coming in here. But Nikov isn't too far away from clicking Savar, and I can't help but feel that if that upgrade comes in, it could be lights out here for MbL.
Yeah, or if the castle's denied. I think the only thing that MbL could really hope for is to complete this castle, and a couple Cavalier around the crossbowmen are getting decent kills. And Nikov is also focused down the villagers. So the castle is at least temporarily denied, and 130 villagers for the Argentinian, just 73 for MbL. Can he afford enough army to win this game now?
I mean, he has one elephant in the queue. It's not exactly the most impressive in the world, and even those reinforcing villagers, I guess the cavalry are just going to run right past them.
I mean, do you know, I'm just thinking about this. It's a 250 HP 12 attack against 140 HP 12 attack. I think the Castle Age Malay Elephant should beat the Cavalier, right?
The Cavalier attack faster, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they still win, especially with trample damage.
Yeah, and so I'm just kind of thinking, Nikov, he doesn't have a lot in queue right now. It's not like he's floating a lot of resources. Maybe there's a chance for MbL. He still has so many numbers. He still has castles. Nikov's going to build his own castle here, but Nikov's army's not exactly working. These elephants are insane, dude.
Yeah, I always say elephants are underrated. And I mean, I just love how Nikov is targeting those villagers and making sure this castle isn't happening. I mean, just look how beautiful that is.
Yeah, that's
just
sick.
Focus down all of those villagers individually. And as both players' armies, dwindle, that's still going to be better for Nikov, who has the eco behind it to better replenish it.
Yeah. I think Nikov, it's kind of weird here when your opponent had gone crossbows, but maybe you got to consider Halb. Pikeman's on the way now, so that's on his mind. That castle still could be completed by one vill. Maybe that or even a couple of additional monks. Either way, not a common thing that the Persians normally want to do here. But this is Nikov's game to lose right now. Look to the left side. Look at how well he's expanded his eco throughout all of that. And that's going to be the big reason why he can win this game.
For sure, but that castle, it's slowly but steadily being built. That one villager is laying brick after brick, all by her lonesome.
Villager is... I mean, that castle's going to be denied, right? Because the villager can't take... No. The castle's going to go up.
You have two skirmishers coming in. Oh, that's too slow. Yeah, the castle is going to go up.
wait! 98.7% it's denied. And behind this as well, Nikov producing those pikemen. I think that's going to be the key to deal with these elephants. Even a random conversion or two from the monks is going to be huge. Nikov needs to wall that up again if he can to stop a random villager from walking through.
Yeah, I have to be really careful with that. But, I mean, it's so nice to see that even though Doubt is out, he still blesses this game with his castle. And just now, some late eco upgrades here for MbL. And things are definitely looking better for Nikov. He's grabbing that halberdier upgrade. Once that's in, those elephants are going to start to melt. Yeah. And again, he's still just being as active as possible with his army. And it's such a great game, number one, though.
I do think that this MbL has put Nikov into this frazzled brain state that will benefit MbL in the next game. Right? Like, it's a massive population for Nikov, and it's taken him a second here to be like, to get back to really moving. I don't know really how to explain that, but occasionally that just happens to you, and MbL has a tendency to rattle you. But I think this has got to be over now. The YOLO elephant play had to be it. Any raids MbL had will be cleared up. Nikov has Halb, and I see MbL's elephants running home. Running home at this stage is not a good sign when Nikov has all the gold control that he has, all the eco that he has compared to MbL.
Yeah, Cavalier is still butchering villagers over there all across MbL's base. He's now grabbing pikemen, only at 100 villagers to 140. I still would like to see that Savar upgrade just be that little bit extra prioritization, as those units are just insane. Yeah. You get Savar plus Halb, and then it really should be that the killer move.
I think he's saving for it now. I definitely understand why he didn't do it before, because things got really scary, and he needed as much production as possible. But well played from Nikov. I mean, from the start of the game, he's been so active. And it took him till Imp to really be able to finish off MbL fully. And he had to kill over 100 villagers this game. And there's Savar.
There we go. Did you see the most Nikov moment ever? Get handcart? No. Savar right now.
That's true. He did. He did cancel handcart.
For a second, he queued up handcart and was like, no.
Well, I mean, he should get that eventually here. That's wild. Focused on the fights. And even getting Blast Furnace now, yeah. He's like, I don't need handcart. I don't need carts for my hands. I need a wheelbarrow instead.
It's not like an either or. You can get global upgrade first.
Oh man. No, I feel like kind of guilty because I feel as though all the times I went Nicov when he didn't get like horse collar and stuff over the years, I kind of feel like I encouraged that from viewers. I think we all did. I mean, you could argue it was very true. But these days, that's kind of a dead meme in my opinion because Nikov's eco is actually ridiculous. I think he told me once he was bullied into being a better eco player, so it shows that bullying is kind of a good thing. But yeah,
wow.
there's Savar now. Sorry.
Oh boy, yeah, there's Savar, and they kill everything and look great while doing it. The Halds are there too. Nikov is indeed rounding out all of his eco upgrades.
Yeah.
And I mean, a really great attempt here from MbL, but it just felt like Nikov was the one in the driver's seat all game long from all the way back to the initial dock.
Yeah.
And he has just never let his foot off the gas.
Yep. And I think for MbL, maybe just a better fight in early imp. Honestly, maybe it's weird. The elephants obviously were a big reason of why he was able to hold, but I can't help but feel like, what if he would have gotten Arbalest? He had like 40 crossbows, and he was never able to afford that. I suppose if he does that, then he's up against Persian Cavalier that have the +2 attack versus archers, so it's not great there either. But Nikov takes game number 1. It is a best of 5 now. And I still feel, as I said before, MbL's known for being maybe more nervous in the first game. Maybe a slightly more questionable approach here. He's going to go into game number 2 and be warmed up, and we'll have a crazy series on our hands.
I mean, that game was still very close. MbL kept himself alive as long as he could and didn't let Nikov run away with it any more than Nikov actually forced the issue.
Yeah.
And yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this game, or this series rather, can still absolutely go the distance.
Yes. Also, I'm not advocating for anyone to bully anyone. That was a joke. That was humor. Don't quote that, please. And thank you. Game number 2. So Nikov played incredibly solid in the first game. Maybe some shakiness for MbL. Who knows? But he goes for cross now, and he goes for a Civ. I think was picked more than any other Civ throughout the group stage. I don't have any data to back that up, but it seems likely. Japanese are certainly up there as one of the best. And Vietnamese have not been on the tier list for me. I kind of like it. I think I saw it one other time, and when that happened, the player immediately went forward to try and lame, which Nikov is doing. But not a Civ you would typically think of for a water map like this.
I mean, they're still good, right? I mean, you have the early wood savings on the eco upgrades, and then Vietnamese are just such a good, well-rounded Civ. I mean, I tend to think of them as like a better Huns in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Then you certainly pick Huns a lot on cross anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if there needs to be an adjustment. If you're up against this Civ, is it worth it to find your sheep as early as possible? MbL is just pushing deer, which a lot of players do. But in theory, if Nikov was a little bit more fortunate, he would have had 2 sheep headed back towards his base, and maybe even a third, because he's again missing this. Maybe Nikov after the series needs to ask MbL his laming secrets, but Nikov just continues to miss. Is he gonna miss? Okay, he sees that one. He finds 3. Yeah, that's all he wanted.
Okay. Yeah, and something I noticed that MbL has 2 back boar, so that the boar gods are favoring MbL as they typically do. And yeah, it's certainly not going to be worthwhile for Nikov to try and lame that. Still getting away with 3 pigs. That is a nice consolation prize, if nothing else. And Nikov still should be perfectly fine. He took an early boar himself and can get a nice early dock himself.
Yeah, so laming the lamer here. And you can now push your own deer and sacrifice scouting because you know exactly where your opponent is for early feudal. And you know exactly where he's going to dock as well because MbL is never going to walk further away from the corner. So that's a lot of information. I really like that. Now, MbL's moving his scout out, and I think he might be looking for his sheep right now. So I don't know if he's in tourney mode. You are up against the Vietnamese. You have scouted pretty thoroughly, MbL. It's just very likely that those sheep, or I guess those pigs, just aren't going to be there.
Oh, no, this is what we call Ornlu denialism scouting. Surely my opponent hasn't lamed me, right? That would just be silly. I probably just missed my sheep. I don't need to go and try to look across the map. They're definitely still here.
Yeah, and there's enough gaps where maybe he's thinking he made a mistake. I mean, if this is a ranked game, I completely understand the whole, oh, okay, my opponent didn't lame. Because at a high level, at least, people just usually don't lame each other. There's a short list of players who do, and everyone knows which players they are. But in this case, I do wonder if MbL's lack of scouting intel will eventually be a problem. Because there's a lot of directions his opponent could be. He needs information on how to address things compared to Nikov, who knows exactly where the gold is, he knows exactly where the TC is, and he knows exactly where the dock is.
And, thinking now to the adjustments you made to cross, so that players typically spawn a bit closer, it seems, but like not on this particular generation. This is more of the, I would say, classic cross spawn.
Yeah.
And so a bit of a longer rush distance, and it gives Nikov relatively easy access to 3 pawns.
True. Yep. And you could argue MbL as well. There should be similar distance to both of them to their original pond. I think that's the change we made. So their OG pond should be similar amount of tiles. Very easy for MbL to send a villager down to the south. And a bit further for both to go to the north. The big thing I'm noticing is actually the golds here, dude. Both of them have pretty abysmal golds. So forward golds for both main golds. And then the secondary and third golds are not good either. I guess MbL does have that 4-tile gold in the back. But even that's not really in an ideal location to wall between your wood lines. It's just, you don't want to count on taking your 4-tile gold. You want to have map control for the main gold.
Yeah, now they look at it, it's like golden ponds or whatever. The map that's like cross, but with gold in the middle. It's like that, but like drifted apart a little bit.
Yeah.
There's like so much gold in the middle, and then you have the ponds as well.
And then there's a line of relics in the middle, you know?
Oh yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. I guess the relics are slightly better for Nikov. There's 2 relics kind of to the north, but very, very little chances we're going to see too many relics collected. So all that conversation about gold and scouting, and MbL did scout the dock now. So he should, knowing how the map plays out, know that Nikov's TC is where it is. But he hasn't seen much more than that. And Nikov walling. He walls in a way that disrupts a sneak villager from MbL onto his pond. And is also walling in the north as well, pretty heavily.
Yeah, I like this a lot. Just make sure that there isn't even a chance that your opponent can come forward and dock. Because especially with players as good at quick walling as they are, if you even see the villager coming, it's really difficult to actually prevent them from even building the dock. So just keep it as safe as possible.
Now, having watched every game, MbL never snuck with the Vill one time. He was the one who was more defensive, from what I remember. It's very likely I'm wrong there. He's sneaking a Vill now. And look at this. He remembers Nikov's reputation of sneaking docks. And he drops an outpost, which I think more people need to do. Very wise play from MbL, just to ensure that you don't lose that pond when you're busy with everything else. And there's the Vill. Will Nikov spot that Vill? He might.
Oh.
They're fighting. And
but MbL has more HP. Oh, the dock is going to go down.
Nikov's going to check now. Nikov's going to check. This is the last thing he wanted. This is why he walled the south. This is why he was trying to wall the north. And MbL is there, and that is the worst feeling. If you're playing this map, that is the worst feeling. What a great timing from MbL as well. That dock is pretty much going to complete, like, I don't know, 20 seconds after Feudal Age.
That is really brutal there for Nikov. And our blue player himself, he has his stable down. The barracks isn't even in yet for MbL, but obviously you're focusing more on land. The onus is really on you at that point to get some damage done.
Yeah, now the fun thing about the map is that now Nikov should have the opportunity to dominate on land before any spears come out. But it seems like a pretty tiny window here. The barracks is up. And behind this, MbL sending a Vill to the north to get a dock up. He's also getting Town Watch for vision, which I think is great. And he's adding an archery range at home. MbL's had a great start.
Yeah, really hard to argue with it. Of course, Japanese I think just the best civ on this map. MbL playing it really well, great timing with the villager. And sort of the map is his oyster. He can take this game in any direction he wants. And with those spearmen as well for Japanese, it's going to be at least even easier to defend.
It's so costly to have to make these fire galleys. And it's so sad to have to make these fire galleys when you're likely to lose your pond or your fish anyways. It's like you're defending something that should have been safe if you're in Nikov's position. But you've got to do it. You can't just let those fish go down uncontested. And you need activity elsewhere. Vill headed to the north for Nikov. They may find each other up there. And Nikov's scouts didn't actually engage in MbL's base. He seems to be looking to deny something in the north. And it's funny, they both were looking for a shorefish that didn't spawn. And no one wants to dock and not be next to a shorefish. And now Nicov can see the dock from MbL.
And the villager there is exposed. Now the dock is going to be completed. And wow. Oh, I hate this. I hate this so much.
That's actually so good. Because now the scouts aren't at your base. And now your villager's still protected. That's amazing for MbL.
It is absolutely fantastic for him right there. The archer's on standby. Those scouts are going to need to retreat at this point, and it looks like Nikov's villager is going to be the one that's going to meet her untimely demise, as there's still a ton of effort having to be made by Nikov in his own pond right here, and MbL is ahead in vills, and he is safe.
Yeah, but as MbL was quick walling, he lost all of his ships on the attack. So Nikov landed a demo. I believe I wasn't actually looking. I just see the KD and know that MbL lost most of his navy. So that's the beautiful thing of the map. And scouts now from Nicov hitting MbL's gold. MbL does have the spear. Nicov a little desperate maybe to get Vil picks. And now he's annoyed because it was so close. And he sacrifices a lot. I think that's worth it, though, to get a Vil pick. You need something right now.
2 scouts and half another scout's HP for 1 Vil on a map with fishing ships?
See, I like it because I'm not seeing any future value for those scouts beyond scouting the southern pond. So maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe having a couple extra scouts is good to help against some skirms or something, but it comes down to what value you're going to get from that. And you're already behind economically, and MbL lands some pretty nice demos here, Ornlu, and should be able to pick off the weak ships and remain on Nikov's pond here.
Yeah, and 2 demos in your own pond for Nikov feels just a bit excessive, where it's, you know, waiting around benefits your opponent because then you yourself are forced to build up even more defensively, and you're still not really able to, you know, enact a proper engagement as Nikov. Double the fishing ships right now for MbL. He is completely uncontested in the north pond where he's got his galley. The south pond looks like a scout's going there for Nikov, but this is still looking so good for MbL. Great bounce back game for him.
Yeah, great bounce back game, and he's got farms as well. So it's a mix of everything you want. He's got 5 on berries. He's got 3 on the farms. He's got the 10 fish. I love how active he's been. He's made 8 fishing ships in that starting area, so that was not what he opened with in Dark Age. And he's fielded the map with a lot of land army as well as the navy. Again, you just can't help but feel like if MbL just continues along these lines, in early Castle Age, he'll have a pretty massive lead. But it's still wonder, because it's MbL. He doesn't normally kill anyone in early Castle. He just gets a lead. So I wonder if the matchup for Japanese gets dangerous if MbL isn't aggressive.
Well, there's a stable coming in, and I wonder if this is the matchup really to go for Cav Archers. What am I talking about? Of course it's the matchup to go for Cav Archers. Every matchup is the matchup to go for Cav Archers. But yeah, just getting that extra bonus damage versus the enemy archers feels like that should be a pretty nice transition for MbL to continue to get further ahead while developing his army.
Yeah, MbL would love to get War Galley in the back dock and then upgrade these ships here. It might be possible. Nikov's got a lot of ships here. And still no dock in the south. MbL had a Vil on the other side of the wall, so I think he'll send the Vil down there. And there's the archers from Nicov. Kind of forgot he had these archers. He was very patient with them, but he's up against MbL and he sees the skirm, so he knows what to do now.
Yeah, he's going to need to scooch back. He is on 2 ranges himself, so he can continue to build up those archer numbers, but it feels like he needs to be making something happen. And right now, Nikov is just kind of running home and isn't really able to do a whole lot. Yep,
and now Nikov up against more aggression from MbL, but again, pretty decent engagement. Nikov is actually fish trapping in this southern pond. So that's actually his approach now. That's interesting. So instead of trying to expand, because he's too far gone there, he's hoping that he will win the water here and then can actually go for a lot of fish traps as a way to recover.
I mean, it's doing something, right? And it's not just sort of sitting back and saying, well, I can't really do anything. So,
yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the effort, if nothing else. Okay, so the Siege Workshop is canceled for a monastery, which is kind of surprising. You'd think that you would just want to go and attack your opponent as quickly as possible, but
Yep.
He's still probably fine.
But, I mean, War Galley is really the key here. Both of those docks are alive. And I think it's an interesting argument for Nikov to think that he needs to win this pawn to win the game anyways. He lands a nice demo there. But it's also way riskier. If the Fire Galleys get back there, he loses those fish traps. That could be game ending. That's not cheap.
Yeah, now we're looking at Japanese with 3.5 pawns, essentially.
Yep.
And pushing across here in the middle of the map. 1,000 resources ahead is MbL, and he's got his monks coming out. And, I mean, Nikov is really going to need to do something decisive here. He's getting a War Galley himself, but even if he wins water here, he's still just kind of stuck in his... Oh, okay, that's rough.
That demo was the perfect demo for MbL. It's before Nikov gets his upgrades. And watch this fire as well. Boom. And boom. Yeah, it gets 2 more ships. Oh, yikes. And again, it's just the cycle of now you have to protect your fish. And more fires are on the way from MbL. This is more important than anything that could honestly have happened from a siege workshop. He can still go for the siege or maybe just play defensive skirms. But what a great job from MbL.
Yeah, he's grabbing his second TC at home. He's now in the southern pond, and it's really hard to hate anything about MbL's position this game. Looks like, yeah, he's still fighting.
The thing that I don't like is how he didn't TC the gold. I get that you probably feel you have enough on gold right now, and that TCing wood feels more natural for your eco, but the way you lose the game is the way you lose the front of the base. So, I mean, without even a tower there like Nikov has, things could actually fall apart for you rather quickly there if you're MbL.
Well, to do that, Nikov would actually need to be able to beat MbL's army up at the front, which he's just kind of wandering to the side, kind of a mix of archers and skirms for both players.
Yeah, but like, you know, for MbL's position, I think he believes he's probably okay. There's siege rolling forward from Nikov in the middle, which could land a shot, and that's a big army that will force a reaction from MbL. So MbL, he still hasn't killed the fish. He actually lost his docks. Well played from Nikov. And Nikov's got an army in here that MbL needs to react to. This is what I said about MbL. He normally gets a bigger lead with his Castle Age. This was maybe an opportunity to force the issue through the middle. And now he's playing reactive. And this is Nikov with crossbow micro. This is dangerous, dude.
Hill, of course, in favor of our blue player. It's all still going to come down to the micro, but there is a much larger percentage of the army of skirmishers here for MbL.
Yep.
So he is just going to try and force his issue up the hill, maybe, eventually. Sure. Well, let's go with that.
Yeah, and no ballistics for either. Nikov doesn't even have Bodkin, actually, so I think I got a little too excited about that. But the gold still, it's just... Maybe it's just coming from a player perspective, but that is terrifying to me. That is an absolute target for Nikov to pressure, and score lead is definitely something these players factor in when they're playing. So I wonder if MbL is feeling like, maybe I'm falling behind here. It is actually 14 fishing ships for both. It's just Nikov is in that back pond and adding fish traps.
And, you know, I gotta respect the fact that as soon as he saw he was winning water, he still kept on queuing up fishing ships immediately. He is really leaning into this fish boom.
Yeah. If this was 2020, we'd be like, what is he doing? It doesn't make any sense. But these days, people are fish trapping and getting guild nets so consistently. And now second TC for Nikov on a stone to maybe think about a forward castle, which can be really valuable. First off, as the Civ to make rats and archers against Japanese, but also just against these gold positions.
Yeah, both of them, both of those reasons are really, really compelling to try and get that castle down as quickly as possible. But without Bodkin, it feels like you're really going to struggle to do anything here in the short run, as even those unupgraded knights are starting to push back this army of Nikov.
And remember when the siege workshop was placed from MbL and he decided on a monastery instead? I wonder if he's regretting that right now, because if he had siege at any point in the middle, things would have been much smoother for him. He's lost the relic. The monks haven't really added any value. And now it's a skirm crossbow war against Vietnamese. And we didn't... I guess we just alluded to it. But I think Vietnamese are way better than Japanese in late game. Not just slightly, but like way better. Imperial skirm, bombard cannon, rats and archer, and then superior light cav. This before we talk about the elephants. My money's on Nikov if this goes imp and it's a similar eco situation.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, it's just why Vietnamese are such a strong civ these days on so many maps, right? They're just sort of good throughout the entire game, and you have options in both mid and late game. It's a really powerful civ, and it takes a super strong late game civ to compete with that. And Japanese are much more about the snowballing early advantages here on the water.
Yeah, MbL does still have the pond in the north and the south. That will get slightly less efficient, but that can always be fish trapped as well. And both players building outposts through the middle. Dude, this is so similar to the first game, where they both have these big armies, but they're not going to dive for an engagement. I feel like in the group stage, we saw, I guess because the players weren't as even, we saw a lot of situations where the big fight would happen about now, and then whoever wins the fight wins the game. But they're both just camped on either side of this area where they're both of their main golds are. This is this is ridiculous, and this might not be a big engagement until Imp.
Yeah, and it's like an eerie degree of symmetry between the like either side of the middle of the map. You know, got the siege workshop, the ranges, the stables on both sides. But yeah, now the castle is coming in for Nicov. It has been something he's been prioritizing, but Imperial Age here for MbL, and that feels like it's even better.
Yeah, and that's amazing from MbL. I like the position of his outposts and how he's played is. Anytime Nicov chooses to move forward, he knows I'll be at the advantage here because I have the hill. And then I'll pop out with my mangonels, but there's no need to take any risks otherwise. And if he can drop a castle on that hill for trebuchets, can make a big difference. And I know that eventually we prefer bombard cannons, but still a couple early trebs could be dangerous for Nikov.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going to take you a long time to actually get to bombard cannons. And MbL with two, well, I guess just one castle on the hill right now. You can get 2 trebs out, though, by the time that Nikov can get his own trebs out. And this just feels like a pretty tricky situation for Nikov to navigate.
This level's insane, dude. They have so much respect for each other's ability, and it shows. And, I mean, look at the micro here. Look how many volleys have to go off before someone loses a unit. MbL, though, loses both of his mangonels.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more. This is what we want to see in the playoffs, right? These guys are absolutely respecting their opponent. They're playing at their personal highest level, and it still feels like it's anyone's game despite MbL having, I guess, on paper, all the advantages.
MbL's banking a ton of res, and I can't help but feel like if he can spend it properly, he could get the job done here before the Vietnamese get really dangerous. It really comes down to these castles. If the Vietnamese castles stand, Vietnamese win this game. They can make rats and archers. They, of course, can make their own trebs. But I don't know. Like, Nikov's still committing to skirms. Nikov's food eco doesn't seem as good as MbL's, and he's spending his resources faster. But MbL's got 1,500 gold, 1,100 wood. He's going to make trebs right away. And now you're starting to see the towers, which I guess is the one thing that I haven't really touched on in the strength of the Japanese. If you can get towers, it could be much tougher for the Vietnamese player to push.
Especially since the Vietnamese rely primarily on ranged units. They're just not very good at destroying buildings super fast.
Yeah.
So I'm generally a big fan of the towers in a lot of like these ranged unit-dominated matchups.
It's nice to see Japanese without cav archers, man. Isn't it?
I know, man.
This like feels like the actual Japanese identity for me.
I know.
Castle for Nicov is very smart on the left side, I think. It secures an area of the map where there's additional golds and stones. And Nikov's micro continues to be pretty good, but MbL lands a shot there too.
Oh, that was a real caster curse right there.
I know! I thought Nicov had the perfect micro. Imp Skirm.
Imp Skirm is on the way. And I think you and I both have a healthy respect for this unit. And it is absolutely something that Nicov can do to just sort of hunker down and try and drag out the game more.
Yeah. Well, he almost needs to wait now until those upgrades come in to add bombard cannons. And this is now MbL's time to push. MbL's trebuchet is taking out a tower right now. I find that interesting. Nicov actually is repairing the tower, or at least he was. He's probably like, go ahead, waste your time on my tower. I don't really need that as much as I need the castles. And now you're starting to see the skirm ball rise. MbL's towers denying some golds. He now drops a castle in the north. Man, what a game. What a crazy game.
I just love this sort of slow creeping push from MbL. I mean, it's what Japanese are so good at.
Yep.
You're taking more map control, you're putting Nicov in a corner more and more, and you're still continuing this pressure on the front. He's still developing his trebuchet numbers, and it feels like it's not like, okay, you immediately win the game here as MbL, but it feels like he's getting closer and closer to checkmating Nikov.
Well, I think he needs Kata Peruto if he's advancing forward for these castles. And the other thing he needs, he already is teched into. Like, he's really on point here. He's got monks with redemption. Now, he only has 2. And that's not going to be enough, and that is a waste of a monk. And very ambitious to click forward in the first place. But let's see. Nikov has 4 bomber cannons in queue. And yeah, you saw the monk, but look what happens. He goes in for a monk, and then MbL skirms wipe up the army trying to snipe that.
Yeah, still with the skirm number advantage here from MbL, the tower is able to lay down some damage from the back. I don't think Yasuma is in yet. It is not. But yeah, there you go. Treb is down, and Nikov is, you know, not thriving, but he's not dead.
Honestly, 6 or 7 bombard cannons, 50 skirms. What do Japanese do? I don't think they have a single answer for it. If you say Onager, that was it, with the expectation that Nikov isn't going to be a god and micro down the Onagers with his bombard cannons, which, spoiler alert, he's a god, so that'll happen. And then the towers, they help against the skirms, but again, not the bombard cannons. MbL's timing's kind of slipping away. Maybe he could Treb push somewhere else, and I think he's trying that now. The Trebs are rolling over to the other side where Nikov built a castle to take out a tower. And yeah, that's great from MbL. Nikov won't be able to keep that castle up.
Yeah, and I think just restricting the castles of the Vietnamese player, as you've been saying, is just a very good idea in general. But you still can't abandon the front of your base. You have a couple of monks there to help out in the back. But we have some samurai on the way.
Oh, Nikov! Nikov doesn't know! Nikov doesn't know the castle's there! And so he clicks his Vils for the Treb, and oh my goodness, the Vils go down. I mean, I will say, at least this tells Nikov he has to push middle, right? He's going to get so disrupted in this area of his base, but I think he has to attempt to ignore it and push the middle.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, yes, those Trebs are annoying, but there really isn't a whole lot to go with the Trebuchets, so MbL can't really go beyond the range of his defensive buildings.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of bombard cannons for Nikov.
Nikov said, screw skirmishers. I'm going only bombard cannons. He's about to have 10 bombard cannons. I mean, we don't even see double-digit bombard cannons in an arena game, much less, like, a fortified clearing game.
Well, I mean, that's going to be one way to actually just completely push MbL out of his base as quickly as possible. So, I mean, you got to respect that. But these Imp Skirms are basically fully upgraded.
Yeah.
And MbL's going to try a Cavalier switch, but without that +4 defense,
yeah, that's
Imp Skirms can kind of make it work.
And that's for anyone suggesting maybe go Samurai, maybe go Cavalier. That is the issue. The lack of armor is the issue for the Cav. Samurai is probably much better, but you need castles for that. And he only has 2 castles. And look, wow, what a reposition from Nikov. He's actually starting to work his way more toward the right instead of the middle because he senses that MbL could push deeper into his base. And even Siege Engineers now on the way from Nikov. What a great performance from him.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he is... I mean, he's kind of being MbL-esque, right? You know, He doesn't have any map control. He's really been struggling to get out of his base this entire game, but you know what? He's still taking good fights. He's still developing his army, and I actually totally agree with your chat. I think that Champions would be a much better switch than Cavalier here for MbL, because at least you get Gambesons.
Yeah, but it takes so long. Like, think of all the techs you need. Like, you don't have time right now. I completely agree with MbL's thinking. If you have time, I agree, but MbL needs to get 1 tech, which is Cavalier, and then hopefully, and then he has a little bit more mobility. I think that's why MbL's doing it, to at least explain the logic, but it's just because this has been so intense, and MbL will convert a bombard cannon, kill a bombard cannon on the right, which means Nikov's castle's going to go down, and look at the amount of vills on wood behind there. That's not efficient as is. And now more conversions come in for MbL, and now the Cavalier is here. They don't have the armor, so let's see how they do.
Well, Nikov is going to be on full retreat mode. The populations are fairly even. The Cavalier, no husbandry either. And they are not performing all that impressively, I have to say.
That's so bad, dude. And it's not MbL's fault. He has full armor. It's just you need that armor upgrade for Cavalier to be strong. And Japanese Cav is just... Well, it's Japanese Cav combined with being up against Vietnamese. That's the issue here. But maybe now what that's given you, like that mobility offered a lot. You still sniped a bombard cannon. Maybe now MbL can tech switch to champion. He's got a little bit more time now, while these bombard cannons focus on the towers.
Yeah, and I think that you want to spend your stone on towers in this situation anyway, so not spending those on castles for samurai production feels like a pretty good idea.
That's true.
But that would also require an AoE 2 player going for champions, which,
Yeah.
the chances of that are pretty low.
Well, here's the... I got to play the devil's advocate on it. Rats and archers are amazing against champs. So until MbL takes down castles, it's not going to feel comfortable to go for that at all. I like the towers. The towers have taken out some fish traps. But Nikov realizes, I've got this unkillable army. He can't finish me with these civilizations. So I'm going to, I guess, clear up that one side. Try and stabilize again. And while his food eco is disrupted, he just needs lots of wood and gold for Ratsons. He needs, what is it, 1,000 food for Elite Ratson, I think?
Yeah, 1,000 food, 750 gold.
Okay. Well, he does need gold. Also, MbL's got more towers in the south. He's got a galley on the gold there, too. He's doing a really good job to make life difficult for Nikov.
Yeah, I mean, Nikov's trying to go with his own defensive watchtower, but yeah, I just love how active MbL is being here on the map. But Nikov, he's not taking any unnecessary risks. He's just sort of slowly and methodically pushing out of his base. And 7 bombard cannons isn't 10, but it's still pretty good.
Look at this. Look at this from MbL, though. He sees the bombard cannons are on the right side. So his Trebs will unpack to take the castle on the left. He'll take that castle. And Nikov, he'll save his bombard cannons. He'll save his skirms. I just wonder, when does Nikov run out of gold here? He has 1 relic. He is taking some of the golds in the south. But he needs to actually kill MbL and push through the middle.
And so long as MbL can keep the trebuchets away from the bombard cannons, he can sort of pop down these castles one by one, and that's kind of what he's doing. Yeah, Catapruto would make his life easier, as would... no, Siege Infuse is in, but
I mean, he will take the castle. That's good, but his Trebs are sitting ducks. I think he at least recognizes his Trebs are sitting ducks, so he's trying to take bombard cannons with him. But bye-bye trebuchets for MbL, and it's 90 military for Nikov. 90 military. He's got 66 skirms. He's got 15 Ratsons, and MbL cannot compete with these numbers now. If Nikov could push the middle right now, I think MbL is completely out of gas.
Jeez, this is such an intense game. I mean, you have that one castle, your last bastion of defense here, as MbL is just trying to amass something that can deal with these imp skirms, but just Japanese aren't a civ that's especially well equipped to deal with this. Cavalry is going to be charging forward. It's going to force Nikov back a little bit, but even the unupgraded rattan archers are still basically arbalests.
Yep, exactly.
So they're like okay.
Yeah, they're doing 10 damage, and a unit without final armor has 4 pierce. So you're doing 6 damage a hit. The skirms are also doing some damage there too. The Ratson archers, at least for a time, or sitting on the back. That was an expensive fight for MbL. Cavalier aren't cheap, but I gotta say, MbL still denied some of that gold in the south with some more towers. MbL's building towers on the fish traps again. MbL's not quitting here anytime soon. He needs to, I guess, whittle down the bombard cannons, and then Nikov won't be able to make more because Nikov doesn't have gold.
But how on earth do you kill bombard cannons as MbL? Like, that's just
you have
kind
to
of
convert
the
them.
big issue.
And Nikov's been so good. Anytime he sees monks, he tries to snipe them with the skirms, and he backs away with the bombard cannons. He's played perfect in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all comes down to the unit control at that point. MbL's continuing to spam trash units. He has a huge eco lead, and he's still towering all over the place.
Yeah.
So if these wood lines get denied, that does feel like a win condition here for MbL.
True. I mean, Nikov is running out of space and resources here. And there's Cavalier massing from the stable. That's a way to use Cavalier, maybe, is raid. But Nikov's actually falling back to clear up the towers and the stables before he advances forward again. I can't help but figure out if this... I can't tell if this is too patient from Nikov or perfectly patient, because I was expecting him to push the castle, and I think he could have taken it by now. But if he did that, then he wouldn't have access to some of this gold.
Yeah, I think Nikov's just trying to make sure he still can keep his machine of war going on.
Yeah.
But MbL is just being so persistent. You'll love to see it. Bombard cannons, again, rotating to the south.
Oh, that's a really nice attack round from Nikov. And there are some Rattans there. And Nikov will... I think he saves his bombard cannons. He loses one. He loses one.
Yeah, that's okay. Those are acceptable losses. Also, this is where we point out that paper money would have been very nice for Nikov at this point.
Yeah.
Getting just that little bit of extra gold, especially with so many vills on wood. But, well, this has been a very hectic game.
I mean, I think MbL has chances here. I know the Civ is better for Nikov, but MbL has crept in with so many towers. And these are towers that are doing something. I mean, there will be units running through. Rats and archers are running through the towers. Skirms are running through the towers. And MbL's got his food eco into a much better state. It's now 75 on food, whereas before it was maybe 30. I guess the downside is Nikov just got a whole bunch more gold, which could mean more bombard cannons. And the bombard cannons he had are coming to the main fight now.
Well, we say a whole bunch more gold. There's 1,600 gold left over here. So...
yeah, true.
I mean, that's not insignificant, especially since your primary unit here is a trash unit. But still, it's not... MbL doesn't have to hang on that much longer, in heavy quotations.
Well, it's 79 skirms and 5 bombard cannons. Here we go. Nikov's coming for that castle. I think MbL expects the castle to fall because he's prepping keeps behind it. And by the way, that is keep now. But yeah, castle will fall and onager from MbL. So we'll get to see if he can land a big shot here against these bombard cannons and skirms.
I mean, that's really what this game is going to come down to. He already has siege engineers in for that important extra range, but there's nothing you can do to save that castle right now, and MbL with little stone left to rebuild another one, so no trebs, and of course no bombard cannons for Japanese. So this is still a really tricky situation for both players as we're closing in on the 1 hour mark of this game number 2.
MbL says, I can't kill your main army, but I can destroy your eco. And look at the messiness that is kind of working in some ways. He's got light cav close to sniping some of the bombard cannons. Nikov will notice. Now is when the onagers could potentially do something, but Nikov sees it. Nikov clicks away from it. Behind this, though, Orlu, as Nikov goes for some crazy splits, Nikov is getting towered in his farming eco. And as you have to focus on the micro, you can't focus on the towers and the light cav going up.
Oh, this is just, it's so difficult for both players because MbL needs to be pressuring basically every location at once, otherwise he's going to lose horribly.
Yeah.
But Nikov has to, like, not die in those places and still have this impeccable micro at the front. It is just, like, I cannot understate how hard it is for both of these players to be playing at this level right now.
But MbL's eco is uninterrupted at all times, and he has different angles to push from. I'm beginning to believe now that MbL can do this. One big onager shot on skirms is all he'll want. There's a decent one. There will be another one now that almost lands. But, like, MbL's got 75 on food. He's got all the production buildings he wants. It's extremely efficient. And Nikov is going back to clear up towers constantly. Every time Nikov goes back to clear up a tower, MbL can raid another angle.
And it buys MbL more time, but of course you can't tower forever. He's basically out of stone at this point.
True.
Nikov himself seems to be switching over into some cavalry, but he's just lost so much eco. And yes, he doesn't have handcart either, which is really painful.
Yeah.
And now Capram coming in too for MbL.
Now,
oh boy.
With the lack of gold on the map, is it worth a champion switch, or is it even better to go like Haub? Maybe just in case this becomes a full-on trash war. I don't know.
I mean, Nikov has exactly 1 castle left and not elite rattan archer, so I don't see what the issue is with going for champions here.
Okay. I mean, 1,000 gold's in the bank. He's spending most of his gold on siege at this point, which is what you want in the late game. And MbL's light cap, they might lack armor, but and the skirms might not be imp skirms, but they're doing damage here. All because Nikov's taking out the towers to take map control.
And he's just slowly trying to whittle down everything. Another bombard cannon dies. It's going to be more and more difficult to replace those. I mean, that number went from 10 to 4.
Yeah.
So that is definitely quite relevant. And MbL is going to have a much easier time of keeping his population up as we get, you know, into the super late game here.
Dude, this series is just incredible. Like, guys, I really hope you're as happy watching this as we are right now. This is... yeah. Both games have been insane. How is MbL still alive? It definitely feels kind of do or die-esque because winning 3 straight against Nikov at this level would be really difficult today. So he has to make this comeback. And he's got 50 more vills. So he can just toss units into the meat grinder and maybe wear Nicov down to the point where Nicov can't produce more bomber cannons and can't produce more skirms.
And I think that's basically where we're at right now, T90. I mean, just like, if you look at the mini-map, it's just dots flashing all over the place for Nikov. There's only so much he can actually do. And now look at this, the bombard cannons are finally exposed, and every single one is going to die.
And now, I mean, it's already been tough, but now Nikov is looking at the left, and there's a keep, and he's looking at the middle, and there's Lycav, and then he's seeing Onager, and then he still can't get to that relic because there's another keep, and he doesn't have his pond, and he's just like, man, that was it. Like, I needed to push this guy before I lost all the map, but MbL was just so pesky, and Nikov taps out, calls the GG, and MbL gets the job done. It felt like Nikov was going to win that game. It felt like there was nothing MbL can do, but he just used the options that he had. He used Lycav, he used mobility, he used towers, he used skirms, he used the occasional monk, he used the occasional treb, and gets the job done. What a win for MbL.
Absolutely, could not agree more. And I think one of the most notable aspects of that game is that MbL had double the stone that Nikov had, over 6,000 to over 3,000. And 6,000 is a lot more than you get in a regular game of AoE 2. Well, so that just enabled him to just keep on making those keeps, so to say.
And you get that with the map control that MbL gained with the towers and with the castles that he had, right? Wow, that was crazy. I wonder if Nikov is kicking himself a little bit, though, because there were some moments where I thought Nikov would force the issue through the middle, and he turned around and went back. And I can't help but feel like that now Nikov is regretting that. Obviously, there's big reasons why. Like, he was getting towered, he was getting attacked, he was losing vills, he was losing access to gold. But I think when he had the 70 skirms and the 10 bomber cans, I kind of think maybe if he goes forward, he kills MbL too. So it's understandable he went back. Would have loved to have seen him go forward, but how natural is that going to feel when every time you move forward, there's a monk, there's 3 keeps, and then every time you look back home, you're losing vills. So tough.
I mean, it's one of those things where we know what Nikov didn't work, and it was kind of like a 50-50 decision then, too.
Yes,
so it's I guess the other decision might have been working instead of what obviously didn't work, but it's still such a tough call in the moment, and I don't blame Nikov at all for what he did.
Exactly. Like, the alternative result could have been Nikov loses anyways because he pushes, and then he just loses his vills way faster. So, absolutely, and 1-1 is what everyone wanted to see here, and kind of what we thought would happen, right? MbL shaky in the first game, didn't necessarily have the confidence, I guess, to go for what we thought was going to be the opening in game 1. And then game 2, the nerves are out of the way. The forward dock was wonderful. And that's just sick, dude. That's just sick. Again, MbL in the red and Nikov in the blue. And just like MbL had to respond with picking cross and getting that victory, Nikov goes for his home map, which is fortified clearing. And normally I would say, because MbL is kind of a defensive player in how he operates and how longer the game goes, it's better for him that this should be a decent map for MbL. But it is kind of interesting. For a player who's better the longer the game goes, he really doesn't seem to prefer a map like Fortified Clearing or Arena.
He's been known to express opinions on these sorts of maps. I mean, it's out there on the internet, his general opinion of these maps.
I mean, but he's also, it's also a weird thing because I've always felt like he's really good on them. So I think he doesn't necessarily enjoy it, or at least there's the old famous clip of getting monk crushed by Eddie. No one enjoyed that. But I think he's still solid.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not bad, that's for sure. And this still, they both have good civs here. Hindustanis for Nikov, Bengalis for MbL, and this has all the makings of another long competitive game.
So Nikov played 2 games with Bengalis in the group stage. He had the lead with both of them, and then he tried to force the issue early imp instead of sitting back and booming up to, granted, an expensive composition, but kind of like Dark played yesterday. We saw a lot of defensive castles and waiting for his mass. And so I wonder if in Nikov's mind right now, he's actually thinking about how awkward it was in early imp with Bengalis and the lack of bomber cannon, and if that'll affect his approach here against the Bengalis to potentially try and kill them early Imperial Age.
Yeah, totally. But I do feel like Hindustani's kind of actually need to kill pretty early because it feels like eventually the Bengali army is just going to have too much HP for Hindustanis to deal with, whether that be like all the Rathas with halbs or like elephant archers or what have you. It feels like Hindustanis kind of do need to make something happen.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing too, because normally this is great for Hindustanis regardless of the Civ matchup. But like, I don't know if having Imperial Camel is actually hugely beneficial here at a certain stage. This is not a civilization on the other side that will make many cavalry unless it's an elephant. And I guess Imp Camels are still really good against elephants. And there's a cost difference to compare, but full elephant is really tough for civs that don't have halbs, basically.
And the Bengali elephants take less bonus damage, so
it's,
you know, not as bad.
Yeah.
For the elephants there, especially if they have some halb support.
Okay. Well, Nikov seems to want a fast feudal here because he pushed in his deer super fast. He had Vils desperate for that, and he only has 2 on wood. So the bonus that we haven't really talked a lot about with the Hindustanis on this map is how quickly they break through buildings. That's more of a conversation for Ravines or Acropolis, but I wonder if Nikov will consider a feudal age play. Maybe send a Vil around the side, go for scouts and archers, ACCM style?
It's certainly possible. I mean, you know that Bengalis are probably going to want to play passive early on and go for a fast castle. And I mean, that all indication is that is exactly what MbL wants to do.
Yeah.
So very, very early walls from him, and he might actually be totally fine so long as he realizes that that far western area is not full walled.
Yeah, I think MbL will click behind. He does realize that too. And Nikov will be disappointed that his scout doesn't end up getting through there. But he'll see the walls. And so, again, Nikov's up. This could be a scout build. We've also seen some players with certain civs go fast feudal just for eco upgrades. But Hindustanis doesn't really feel like a civ that has a ton of relevant bonuses for that.
Oh, but T90, you get the, 3% villager discount faster? I mean, come on, man. Gotta use your noggin here.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe that's it. I think Nikov, seeing the walls on this side, is going to go for pressure on the other side. I'm curious, though, on what MbL does when he sees feudal age hits. Because he should think like we're thinking and say, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go feudal boom with Hindustanis. If he's doing that, he might be adding scouts and then maybe pull an extra Vil to wall up.
Yeah, I mean, but it feels like if you can just get a secondary layer of walls down, you're probably totally fine here as MbL. So
yeah,
unless so long as he's sort of paying attention, I feel like he's probably fine.
Unless it's a fast archer follow-up. Like if you go stable, make a couple scouts, and that range is kind of on the front, then you can follow it up, and that Vil behind probably isn't going to accomplish much. But yeah, I'm kind of... I can't help but feel like that this hasn't gone how Nikov would have wanted. I think he wanted to catch the wall Vils before they were walled, and he certainly would have wanted his scout to be attacking a wall already, but he already built his stable on this side, and his scout had already gone to the other side. So now this is just a lot of wasted time for him wandering across the map.
Yes, the classic bet against MbL walling early fails. Who would have thought?
Well, MbL has 2 more Vils, or will get 2 more Vils than his opponent, eventually, of course, with Bengalis, and then an additional 2 when he makes it to castle. So there's definitely that pressure here on Nikov. Now, let's pretend you're Nikov right now, okay? You're making these scouts. Do you wait for a certain number to attack?
Only 3 scouts can attack one segment of palisade at a time, right? So probably no more than 3.
Okay, I mean, technically you could probably get 4 with a little bit of finagling, but yeah. And he is waiting. I wouldn't want to see him attack with 2. So wait for 3 seems logical. And then you ideally would want to be attacking from the top of the hill. I'm not sure if you could do that. I guess the 1 palisade you could get some hill bonus with 1 of the scouts. And there's 3.
Yeah, I think I see the segment you're talking about. But MbL, his scout is already in position. It looks like he saw what Nikov was up to, and here we are.
Oh my god! That's going down so fast, bro! This is a Dark Age Palisade! It's going down so fast, and MbL is completely caught off guard. He tried to judge it in the moment. He didn't think that he could get walls up behind, and now he has to go for gates. And there's a hole!
Oh, no.
Wow. I mean, the strategy already pays off. The scouts get through and kill a Vil, and this is, of course, going to completely throw MbL's build off. Well played from Nicov. Dude, he did the math. He thought about it. I knew it was fast, but I guess because it's a Dark Age Palisade, it went down that much faster. Crazy.
I think that, I mean, maybe you're more adjusted than I am, but in my mind, it's just all Palisades still have 250 HP. And, like, there's just these level of timings that I'm just so used to. And I think you're probably used to, too, over, you know, the years and years we've played this game.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you're just caught off guard when you have Hindustani Scouts against Dark Age Palisades. Now it's just boom, so fast.
Well, I mean, if he's a little later to that, that never happens, and it looks like a wasted investment. Now he can nerd out. He forces spears from MbL, which is not something MbL necessarily wanted to do. That spearman's going to go down as well. And now Nikov can freely do what he needs behind. So, well played from Nikov. Not the end of the world for MbL. He's played enough Arabia games with scouts in his base to manage this. But he even delays his castle age time. Stays in feudal to deal with this.
Yeah, he did end up picking up both eco upgrades, so there, as Hindustanis, you're going to be okay with the game sort of being extended into feudal age. That way, Bengalis just don't get their extra villagers as soon, so they get a little bit less of an eco bonus. So that went from no, yes, for Nikov.
Yeah, I wonder if MbL could have tried to get out there with that Vil instead of falling back to the other walls. Nikov opens that. I mean, that's kind of nice to be able to leave, I guess, with them, because you might want to get value with them in the long run here. But a little surprising that he does that. But he leaves, he saves the scouts, they kill a Vil, they get a tour of the enemy base and strategy, and then he's on his way. And they're both going to be on the way up.
Yeah, but Nikov is even a little bit faster, so being in a situation where you click up to feudal age on 19 or 20 pop or whatever he did, and you get a faster castle age, that, I mean, just mentally, that has to feel great.
Okay, MbL, Nikov has made a mistake here. And not an actual mistake, it's actually very good how he's played this. But against MbL, the last thing you want to do is force him to make lots of spears in this situation, because MbL will always go spear mangonel on your face. So I just saw MbL switch more villagers to gold. He initially only had a couple. And now I'm seeing him make more spearmen. I'm fairly certain we're going to see Vils from MbL walk forward, and he will turn this into a siege monk push. And that's maybe not what MbL's initial plan was in the first place.
The 7 Vils on gold really do sort of point you in that direction, though, don't they?
Yeah, that
it really does feel like it.
More spears as well. He's got spear around the outside, spear around the outside, but I think with 8 spears, you're not going to do that. Usually, to contest for relics, that's mainly if you're bringing Vils forward, and there's the Vils. They've got their baskets, and they will build the Siege Workshop 100%.
The basket part was essential in that analysis.
It's just so funny. Like, they're coming out here to you know, commit murder against other villagers on the other side, and they're carrying their little baskets on the way. It's just so ridiculous.
It's like they're going for a picnic.
Yep. And there we go. So does Nikov see this? He does. Can't exactly put an easy stop to it, but maybe there's a timing. Lightcav's on the way. He could pull MbL's spears out of position with good micro, but it is MbL, and MbL knows exactly what Nikov's going to aim to do. He should at least complete the Siege Workshop. Monastery first. Lightcav about to hit. Does Nikov engage here?
I still think it would be too risky to engage. It feels like keeping those Lightcav numbers up just feels super important here. But Pikeman is on its way. And something we do need to keep in mind is that there is no atonement for Hindustanis. So the double monastery here, if it's a full Vululu off, you can't really do that as Hindustanis.
Yeah, true. Double monastery. Yeah, but what you can do is convert 2 pikes. You convert 2 pikes, you win the fight pretty easily. That's pretty crazy as well. Like, pikeman v pikeman, a pikeman does very little damage. So when you convert a pikeman against this type of push, it soaks a lot of damage, is my point.
Yeah.
And that scout for MbL is also weak, and Nikov is going to try exactly what we said, and MbL can't really do too much about it right now. Look at the numbers from Nikov. This is crazy.
And MbL already backing off a little bit in adding the 2 TCs behind this, so he is still, at the end of the day, looking to expand his eco more, perhaps recognizing that Nikov has simply invested too much into military to get this push off successfully. Now Nikov is adding in his own TCs, and it looks like, as crazy as this game has been so far, we are still, at the end of the day, going to be developing more towards that boomy game.
I love the ratios of how Nikov's used his military here. He pulled enough light cav to support his monk. He has enough light cav taking out the siege workshop, but the siege workshop's not down yet, and a scorpion hops out, and that's still a dangerous amount of pikemen for light cav and monks. So 3 TCs for MbL. He may even get a conversion, and the push is still there. There's still a threat. I think that's what MbL would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because it's like not a full-on push, but MbL isn't stopping his investment into the army either, so it's just really a balancing act. And of course, the ratio of units, as you're saying, is super important here for both players. Yeah, but it feels like if the game just goes on sort of as is, that's actually fine for MbL.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Nikov would have wanted a bit more there. It's just so tough against MbL. I thought Nikov played it as well as he could have. Maybe he could have taken out the siege workshop with all of his light cav. That's the only thing I could have thought of besides what he did. But he wanted those pikes out of the picture. And yeah, the siege workshop still being up is a massive factor here.
Yeah, it's very relevant, but it doesn't have much HP left. So as soon as MbL goes a little bit away from the siege workshop, you have to be so careful about those light cav there with their extra damage versus buildings.
Yeah, Nikov needs to take that out. But he obviously has some weak units there, and MbL's right next to it every time.
Yeah, and of course, that's just the very delicate balancing act here from both players. Notably as well, MbL has 7 bills on stone, already has 200 plus in the bank. Nikov, not on stone whatsoever. I mean, he's just now grabbing loom and is still looking to be a bit more focused on his economy.
So the stones that are there for each player on this type of game, there's the main stone, which for Nikov is forward. That obviously won't work. And then there's a stone outside the walls. That's risky. The other stones are neutral stones, which are on the sides, and that is way to the north, and Nikov doesn't see that, not to mention that's really far. So he's going to have to combat this without stone, without atonement, as you said, to convert the enemy monks. And MbL may also add in a forward castle here. So this is crazy. I think Nikov needs a good engagement here soon, and what a great job from MbL, man. I thought the push was going to die. 3 mangonels, 2 scorpions, 2 monks, bunch of pikemen. It's done so much damage, at least in forcing Nikov's hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very back and forth game. Not exactly what I would have expected going into this one, but it's been very entertaining to watch for sure. And now MbL is the one who's adding in a staple, and he's just going home. Huh. These units, they did not get paid their overtime, and they are not having any of it. They're just going home.
That's funny. Yeah, the job's not finished. The job's not finished. What is this? I mean, MbL was telling me the power of going back, but that... I feel like he didn't need to leave. I feel like he could have stayed.
I really don't know.
I mean, that's... In his mind, he's probably... He feels as though that Nikov probably has a lot coming because his push was so dangerous. So maybe he mind-gamed himself into thinking that Nikov was going to have the answer to him, but I wasn't exactly seeing it. And now Nikov just takes out the monastery, takes the relic? Like, what? That was interesting.
Bizarre, to say the least, but... I mean, still, Nikov being diligent about picking up those relics. I mean, Hindustanis definitely are a very gold-reliant civilization. So having that long-term gold income is going to be quite helpful. You even have Grand Trunk Road to help you out a little bit. And now, as MbL is developing more into the classic sort of closed map light cav-based army composition here in the middle, Nikov's thinking about Imperial Age, and I have to favor that.
I think MbL maybe wants to build a castle here, and that's why he pulled this stuff back. Because he has the stone for the castle, and I think there would have been a risk with hovering Lycav to not be in the right position. Now, here come the Vils now, and they're going to go forward with this. I mean, building a defensive castle now would be extremely awkward, in my opinion. But the fact that Nikov's on stone right now is because he isn't under threat. The fact that Nikov's on the way to imp is because he's not under constant threat. And if he can get gunpowder out, could be dangerous for MbL, as we said before.
And this is where the Ornlu gamer says, this is where you get fortified wall, Nikov. Come on, man. You just need to buy time for your hand cannoneers. You see MbL coming forward. You just need to stall out things as much as possible.
Monk's out of position for MbL. The Lycav are there. The Pikes are out of position too, but I don't think Nicov noticed that. He had other things to worry about, and some of that could be the relics. He's getting relics on the outside right now, so he should have the edge there. And now Nicov going for a forward wall in the south. That's a lovely decision, in my opinion. But MbL's castle goes up, and MbL will click up here, imp here soon.
The difference isn't going to be that extreme, but my concern for MbL is that the difference in imp timing is going to allow chemistry to come in for Nikov by the time MbL himself gets Imperial Age. So that's both Bombard Cannons and the potential for Shatagni.
Yeah.
And now Nikov is getting more relevant monk upgrades. They can sort of keep the mangonels back a little bit here as well. And skirmishers, I don't get.
I gotta say, Nikov is going to be shocked that he will be imp faster. Because he hasn't seen Lycav investment at all. Like, it hasn't played a role. I don't know if he even knows it's out there. Forging and armor, all these things, he might not even know MbL has because he hasn't been up against any units. And I would be thinking with a forward castle that my opponent was about to hit imp any moment. But MbL's still 2 minutes away. This is just to buy him time, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one. Because imp is now in. You can pick up chemistry immediately. That's, of course, what's happening.
The south, there was a pike there. Nikov killed it, so he immediately added 2 gates, thinking he needed to wall faster there. But MbL's Lycav do play a role, and the wall's denied. Big moment for MbL.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not ideal there for Nikov, but he knows Lycav are coming. He needs to just rotate his own Lycav over there to the east, and he's probably fine.
Yeah, he doesn't need the Lycav on the front right now. And he may send more villagers down there, but conscription on the way, chemistry on the way, the ranges are up, and it will be elite skirm for now. I think the logic here, by the way, you can't produce any units out of your ranges for a long time if you're going just hand cannons. And your opponent has pikes already. You need some form of support, and he could always go Ratha. So I kind of like the skirm as a buffer, and then you primarily go hand cannons once chemistry's in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it would have made more sense if there were actually archer upgrades in already.
Yeah,
because then you'd be getting like fletching and ballistics and stuff. But as it stands, he'll just have some skirmishers. It's not really that big of a deal. He can, at the end of the day, develop those hand cannoneers. Does he have the 2 siege workshops? He does love it. And those hand cannons can come in really soon.
But it's MbL with monks, Bengali monks. He should know that bomber cannons will be an issue. And Nikov still is not walled that side. Can you imagine if that was completely walled right now, how nice life would be for him? He's had to focus so much on the outside. And not so much on the middle. He's also walling the north, which, again, fantastic. But lots of work to do. And Nikov does not have a lot on stone right now. He cannot actively take any of the stone in his base because of the positioning of it. And that trebuchet will get sniped. And this is all a result of MbL's activity on the sides, I think, and everything Nikov's focusing on. Well played for MbL, loses some mangonels, but you don't really care about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're glad to get any extra value out of those that you can. Really, really nicely done there. How is that thing not converted yet? There we go. And yeah, Treb is back. Bombard cannons, 3 of which, by the way, are coming forward. Siege engineers here as well. So Nikov definitely not undervaluing the siege right there, which I always think is very important. And those castles, they're the Ratha factories, T90. Can't let those go down.
Yeah, MbL's definitely committing to these. He's going for all the armor. So it feels actually like MbL's intending on using the melee mode instead of the ranged mode more, if he's going for the armor first. But there are monks there from Nikov, and there are skirms as well. So even though the skirms still don't have upgrades, you're going to see the skirms, expect the upgrades are going to come in, and think twice about it. And you just got to wonder, if you're going to go Ratha, do you really want to commit your castles forward like this? It almost feels like a defensive castle would have worked, but clearly heat of the moment and just classic MbL, right? Just a bit more scattered than some other players, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and that does appear to be the case. More relevant monk upgrades coming in for Nikov. He's being very diligent about slowly creeping back across the map. MbL's going to try and go for a couple conversions, and he will get one.
I don't think Nikov got devotion yet, and if he didn't get it, he needs to research it. That bombard cannon's still alive. Does some damage to the trebs. The monks are back. The bombard cannon's still alive. The bombard cannon's still alive on 1 HP. It takes down a treb, And Nikov, I mean, he's doing so many other things. He's still got a good push going here, but he needs to focus in the middle right now.
But you know what? Fundamentally, the castles are going down. Nikov is developing towards the Hindustani camels. That's going to be really good. And of course, the camels are still going to be pretty darn solid against the Ratha. And yet here they come charging in. They have pikes. They have +4 defense. And
if there's one thing I've learned, Ratha will win this fight. They will always win the fight. The melee mode's ridiculous. Of course, the option of the range mode is nice, but it is a wood gold knight, as Phosphor once told me. And it is done everything MbL would have wanted and more. The bombard cannons are dead. The camels are dead. None of these units are cheap. And Nikov's got to be thinking, what can I do right now? He's completely falling apart.
Absolutely. Everything is collapsing all at once here for Nikov. He was doing a nice job sort of focusing on the sides, and a bunch of light cav are going to be running right into the base there of MbL, but you need to deal with the Ratha. They're not even elite Ratha.
No.
It's just Castle Age Ratha, man.
As much as the Ratha are strong, Nikov just clearly didn't expect the commitment or didn't think about the upgrades. He still doesn't have Bodkin Arrow. He still doesn't have Ballistics. But Nikov got into MbL's base with light cav. Maybe he was looking there. He killed 8 or 10 Vils or so. And now MbL has to react. Remember, MbL doesn't have a single relic. Not one. Even though there's a round here. And he still only has 2 castles for Ratha production.
Yeah. I mean, MbL does keep that one castle alive, and the Trebuchet production is going on here. And now Nikov's own castles are in danger. But this is buying Nikov a bit more time to develop more towards his Camel Skirm combo. And it feels like it's still winnable for him.
Yeah, it's really awkward. I think if Nikov had like 20 more farms, I'm totally thinking he wins this. Yeah. If he has a couple more upgrades, I'm totally thinking he wins this. If he sees the stone in the north, I'm thinking he wins this. But all those things aren't there yet. The skirm upgrades are coming in now, so I think he learned the hard way. But he loses his only castle.
You mean other than the one that's right next to it?
Oh. Well, yeah, other than that one. Other than that one.
Yes, other than that one, it was his only castle. And now another big engagement here at the front. The skirmishers and the camels trying to do what they can, but is it going to be enough? It looks like it very well could be.
Oh, man, and MbL needs the castles, which he has 3 of. By the way, just to point out that I can count, he's got 3 of them. He needs those castles to produce the Ratha. But, dude, the Trebs went full Kobe and sniped those bombard cannons. I think there was 2 direct shots, or if not direct, lucky shots from MbL. Painful, Nikov.
Every single game this series so far has been excellent.
Yeah.
You have 3 castles still here for MbL, as you so wisely pointed out. He's getting elite Ratha, but does he have the time? He hasn't had conscription up until this point. He's trying to squeeze out masonry. But there's already siege engineers in here for Nikov.
And he's now getting elite Ratha, but it feels like the flow of the game just isn't there. And honestly, while Nikov has had to push for a while, now is actually kind of a state where after this fight, he can just chill and stabilize. His Civ only gets stronger. There's another castle for him now, and he's got 5 of the 9 relics on the map. I honestly think he's going to have more eventually, but 5 is more than MbL can get to.
Very true, and with the siege continuing to press forward here from Nikov, and the thing that I'm a little confused about for MbL is just, I know Rathas are a silly unit, but it feels like in this matchup, you kind of want to get to elephants.
Elephants, yeah. Well, I can tell you that you just hit a state in the game sometimes where you can't think about things technically. And that was very clear for MbL when he went back with his siege and his army, and then when he went back forward with the castle despite being later to him. I just think, remember, this is Nikov's home map. This is the map that Nikov picked to beat MbL, and pretty clearly we've seen that it's just not a map that MbL is as comfortable on. Nikov is maybe a minute away from clicking Imp Camel, sorry. Imp Camel could come in. This only gets worse for MbL.
It's still a very tricky engagement for both players to take. The Ratha are charging for the skirms. I mean, they're going to be finding value no matter what they're hitting. The bombard cannons are trying to work their way back, but it seems like it's going to be tough to keep that castle alive, and indeed there is Imp Camel on its way, and MbL's population just is not there right now.
Nikov tried to stick around to save his Trebs as long as he could. The castle is actually one hit away from going down, but he wins that fight. That's more than fine. And he saves his bombard cannons, which was the key. And look at this from MbL. I mean, it really goes to show you how active Nikov's been. MbL's trying to play stables in the north. He has no clue that Nikov has had that area walled up for 10 minutes now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just... This series just feels like the series of multitasking and just trying to be everywhere at once. And Nikov just a little bit in terms of getting the edge of that here. He's pushing right back across the map. He's got his imp camels in just a moment. His skirms have decent enough upgrades, and that castle, his last Ratha factory, is about to be going down, and without it, he's got no gold units.
Yeah, kind of a funny note. The villagers that MbL sent to the north should be walking through the middle at any point, because the only path that they can get to that area is through Nikov's wide open base. So maybe, I think I see her right now. There she goes.
Yep, there it is. Good call.
There she goes. She's not going to make it. And MbL won't have any clue that that's walled, of course, because of that. And the barracks are going down.
MbL's going to die, and MbL's not going to notice, but yeah, cannons continuing to press forward here. Nikov back up to 6 bombard cannons, 30 imp camels, and this is going to be tough, man.
Yeah, Nikov's done a really nice job here. The camels are where they need to be. The other camels are pulling back, just giving moments for those skirms. I'd like to see some gold spent on hand cannons now, just because it's a bit more valuable. Like 10 or so in the mix could always help with some higher damage output, but most of the army MbL's made has always been weak to skirms. And the other army that he's made that isn't is incredibly weak to these imp camels, and Nikov knows that.
Yeah, of course, these units are just going to cover their weaknesses pretty effectively. And, I mean, that was like the issue with Bengalis for so long, right? It's just like they died to skirmishers plus anything anti-cav.
Yeah.
And now they do have better options, but you still need to actually tech in that direction. And then, of course, just based off of the flow of this game, that wasn't really the easiest thing for MbL to do, and this should be absolutely a game-winning fight.
Camels, a lot of camels die, right? Which isn't great, but everything MbL has dies, and Nikov has all the position in the game. He has all the additional stones, all the additional golds because of the walls on the side. He will have over 5 relics. I think he has relics on the way back, which, by the way, I don't know if we touched on. He actually moved the relics back just in case, which I really like.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And Nikov wins 2-1. I mean, banger series. It feels like it's going to Game 5. It feels like MbL is going to respond just like he did before. Ah, gotta love it, dude.
Well, thanks for inviting me on for all these good sets, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people will congratulate casters sometimes, say, great cast, and we appreciate the compliments. Don't worry, don't stop complimenting us. But a lot of times great games are needed for a really good show, and MbL and Nikov have both supplied that here. Again, we said it before, but I think for MbL, he wasn't really sure what to do. I think, had he committed to pushing forward continuously with the Siege Workshop Monastery, I think Nikov has much bigger problems. So after Nikov won the first game, MbL responded, looked very, very comfortable. It was a bit of a grind, but he won the second game. Has to do the same here, or he will be out in the round of 12. He's got the Mongols on Kilimanjaro, and not only is that a civ we haven't seen too much this whole season because of all the bans, we also haven't seen positioning quite like this. They seem rather close to each other in the north of the map.
Yeah, it's kind of like the big area, the big mountain that they're going to be fighting over is kind of to the south of both players. So this feels pretty good for Mongols already with a close rush distance.
Yep, that's a really good point. That's what Mongols want. Mongols also want additional hunts, which there's not actually a ton of on this map. There's 1 elephant, and then there's 3 or 4 ostrich. I think that can vary. So MbL already saw his ostrich, and instead of going to push them in, he is going forward. But again, slightly awkward generation here. So we'll see if MbL goes the right direction. He seems uncertain on which direction to head to. I would probably go more towards the south, but he will not find his opponent down there.
Yeah, if I was MbL, I'd also be scouting in a very similar manner. Just immediately look to the opposite side of the map and just sort of figure that's where my opponent is more likely to be than not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is one of those not situations, and it's not likely going to be any sort of labing potential or anything like that.
The other thing that's tough about this, right, is you're looking for indicators on where your opponent would be based on the resources. So you're normally looking at golds and stones. On an Arabia game, if you see a 4-tile gold, you know, okay, the TC's around. If you see a 7-tile, that's their main. They're very close to that. On Kilimanjaro, you don't have that. You have a 4-tile and a 3-tile. And so the neutral golds are also 3 tiles. So you can't just like see a 3-tile gold and say, oh, okay, he's going to be here. That's not the case at all. So MbL didn't really stick around for too long. He also never really scouted the lower portion either, which is what you would look for. Like, you're not going to find them on the hill. But yeah, that's a bit weird.
No, T-West snuck a map change in when you weren't looking, and now you're going to spawn your through TC right on the hill.
Yeah, I was like, well, what exactly is going on? Also, Gurjaras, I think I only saw them played in Gold League. What do we think about that pick here for Nikov?
I really like it. I feel like Gurjaras are such an annoying civ to play against, especially with the cav civs that we see typically picked on this map, like Mongols.
Yeah.
And although it's not a civ win, for you guys in chat who are saying it's a civ win, it's not. But it is going to be Mongols having a bit of a clock in terms of making something happen quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of, as MbL gets housed at 15 population, it has to get loom. This has been a brutal Dark Age. That is incredibly rare to see that. Part of the issue I've had with the start for MbL is he didn't even take advantage of pushing in his hunt right away because he tried to lame. So lame's a risk. We see people lame and then other people say, oh, laming's OP. Well, guess what? If you don't find your opponent, you don't find anything, you wasted a trip. And not only has Nikov been able to push in some of these ostrich to his TC, but he also has his 8 sheep on the mill, which gives him some res, and the mill is on those shorefish, which he's already taken some of, and that's villagers on shorefish is pretty comparable to Mongol hunt.
Absolutely, and now we've got Loom coming in, Nikov having no problems for a nice quick uptime, and it's probably just going to be for a bit of a scout opening here, but I think the big thing for Gurjaras and being able to defend against Mongols in their speed is just having the camel scout, and it's just so good against the early scouts of your opponent.
Not every day that you see the Mongol player going 20 pop scouts, and that's what we're going to see here. Also, I see people saying MbL killed his elephant with his TC. I don't think he did. He just ate it so fast, guys. Yeah, the TC would actually have a kill counter on it. I know why people think that. That would actually have finished the game. I think MbL would have been screwed, but I think he just... There's only one elephant, right? Unless, am I wrong? Should we check this?
The resources collected for Mongols should be a lot better than that.
Yeah, okay, pause for me. I'm going to check. I'm pretty sure he ate the elephant. There's no way he could... There's no way he could go up without eating the elephant, right?
No, you can still go up. You have the shorefish.
Okay, that's an elephant that he... Hold on. Did he... Bro! He shot his only elephant with his TC! Oh, chat was right! What?
Wow, the broken clock has been right once today already.
Oh my god. Okay, well, what time are you at now? We need to sync up on this, but that's crazy.
Yeah, I'm at pause at 7:35, so...
I mean, talk about laming yourself here. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. So MbL had 0 elephants with Mongols on this map. He'll get his 3 deer now. He does end up clicking up, and yeah, that probably explains the difference in the res collected. I kind of thought that Nikov could still be ahead there because of the sheep and because of the bush underneath the TC and because of how fast he pushed in the deer, but yikes, dude.
Yeah, that is not where Mongols want to be right now because, I mean, like I said, as Mongols in this matchup, you really want to get damage done fast. You have a good opportunity to do so, but you need to make it happen, and without having that 400 food from the elephant, minus decay, it is going to be really tough to make that work.
Well, we didn't have our normal Dark Age to talk about it, but I wanted to ask you what you think of this. I am still doing this. I know Tato and Doubt used to do this with the Gurjaras. You don't need to leave all the sheep in there. At this stage, once you're out underneath the TC, you can pull a few, and this is the first time I've seen a player at this level do it in a while. Now, he's now leaving. The Vils are leaving the TC, so he's got to notice, but a couple extra sheep there to work with for Nikov now.
Yeah, I can just smooth things down a little bit. Usually it's like 5 or 6. That's when the diminishing returns of the good old logarithmic formula really come in. But yeah, you don't really need more than 5 or 6 goats in there. Yeah, because it doesn't. The extra 2 doesn't add a big return for you. I don't know the math on it at all. I just know what feels right. And for me,
pulling out 2 or 3 really helps you squeeze in horse collar and get those scouts out. And then you leave the 5 in there, and everything's great. So I really like that for Nicov.
Yeah, just a cute little move there, making sure that he is having a nice tight build order, which he's usually really good at doing anyway. So, yep, just furthering the fact that Gurjaras are normally at least competitive with Mongols, but now working with a nice early lead.
Well, so MbL Civ bonus is essentially out of the picture now. He didn't have a lot of hunts at all. And so usually the Mongols would be pressuring. And I'm sure that's what Nikov is expecting, because Nikov's playing very defensive. But there's no real pressure. MbL is just... He's probably done the best thing to opt for some eco upgrades and try and stabilize this for later on. And hope for the best, but painful situation for MbL right now.
Yeah, I mean, MbL's just going to go over to gold at this point, and it's a little unclear to me exactly what his best course of action is. I mean, right now that scout's even going to eat some shots to the camel scout. Nikov's developing his farm eco. He's got horse collar. And, I mean, it's like, where do you even go at this point as MbL?
Yeah. Well, you go spears and archers, and he's on gold already. There's the range. The issue will be if Nikov sees that and understands what's coming, and Nikov will see it. Because of how amazing Nikov's played today, I'm kind of feeling like he's going to be able to respond to this nicely, but you still got to make him work if you're MbL here.
Yeah, that's... you can't just let your opponent get off the castle age freely with Gurjaras as Mongols. Like, that's just called... You're going to get a bunch of camels and Shrivamsha riders, and you're going to have a very bad day. So, you got to do something.
Do you think the change they made to the way TCs fire arrows... not the accuracy, but in relation to weakening boars. Do you think that was intentional, or do you think that was just a mistake from them, reverting that behavior?
I feel like that was probably a mistake. Otherwise, that would have been in patch notes, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm wondering if they're going to change that back. I mean, there was a clear gap in pros making the mistake when it was the older behavior, and now with the... with the change, we've had pros make mistakes more. Maybe it's good for the game because it adds a skill element, but like, I know people are going to say, well, if, you can lose a game because of it, why do it? But when you can get it right 99% of the time, you're always going to feel confidence in yourself. You're not going to make that mistake. But, man, MbL is just like, he's knocking on the door now. He hasn't done much damage with the Mongols. He needs some damage, but that'd be on my mind if I were him.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to try and make something happen here. He does force the defensive watchtower, which is at least a little bit of a win because Nikov has no back stone.
Yep.
So that's something, I suppose, but that food bank difference between the two players is looking pretty darn rough. MbL even starting to accrue a bit of idle TC time. Nikov still cruising at 0 seconds.
And still no villagers killed. The only kills in this game would be... MbL lost a scout, and obviously you could count the elephant that he shot with his own TC. The skirms are going to hold for now, but fletching is in for MbL, so he's taking out that skirm and piling on some pressure, and nice job from him. It would have been horrible for him if he took some damage, but this is classic MbL. His opponent's on the way to Castle Age, and he's queuing up Spearman number 8 when his opponent only has 4 cavalry on the map.
Well, you know what they say. It's the 5th spear that is just not enough of an investment. The 6th spear is too much. But the 8th spear
is
now
just
that's
right.
A sweet spot.
If you're gonna make 5 spears, you might as well make 3 more.
Exactly. And then suddenly you're at 200 population of 3 vills and 197 spearmen.
Yeah, I think Nikov just needs to snag fletching here, and he could think about an engagement. Being patient on that. The blacksmith's on the way, and MbL. Just not the game you would have wanted. And listen, I don't care how it happens, but these days, man, if you just have one game in a best of 5, when we're talking the top 12 in the world, that is a complete and utter dud. You're going to remember it, and it's going to affect the whole series, right? That's what it comes down to at the highest level. So I'm hoping MbL could turn this one around. Obviously, still could potentially do so, but he's still making so many spears, bro. He's about to make his 10th spearman.
Oh, jeez. I mean, That's what? 250 wood and 350 food spent on Spearman. That is not insignificant, to say the least.
Yeah. Oh, pain. Well, that's MbL for you. And he is going to add more scouts now, seeing the skirms. But that castle time, that's an 1830 castle time. Let's not act like that's a normal castle time. That might be the fastest we've seen on the map all tournament. And Elite Skirm and Bodkin now.
Idle time for Nicov. Like, I know we're talking about what a sad game MbL's having, but Nicov is playing basically perfect.
But yeah, exactly. It's absolutely perfect from Nicov. And in all honesty, with a couple slight changes in that second game, I would have thought the same for him there as well. He's played incredible today. And now MbL is forced to invest in Feudal Age. I'm sure that Nikov was not expecting this big of an army when he clicked forward here. So he's kind of in a tricky spot right now.
I mean, this isn't the worst fight in the world for MbL as far as it goes. I mean, the skirms are still there, but the scouts can take down the skirms, and then the spearmen can, I guess, drive away those camels. Of course, the Gurjara camels aren't any better versus spearmen than a generic camel.
Yep.
And
yeah, this is a complete wipe. Yeah. It looked like maybe okay solely due to the numbers, but 20-5 make it 20-6 KD for Nikov, who's one win away from heading to the quarterfinals here. After only 6 wins in the group stage, believe it or not. He played way better than that in my mind. But only 6 wins. MbL had 9.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that your group stage performance, I mean, it matters. And you want to get the best playoff seeding you can. But if you just turn up that level in the playoffs, if you have one extra set to play, whatever, if you can just beat your opponent in such a dominating way here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Viper's going to be aiming to show a lot of people the same. Because people expected him to be first, and he'll be in a round of 12 instead of a quarter. And he'll be aiming to show that the group stage form isn't necessarily the biggest deal. We'll see. I think Viper Sebastian's going to be crazy, and Nikov's going to dive here? He runs underneath the TC, kills another Vil. No mercy here. Now, all of MbL's farming eco is disrupted. He's got to go to the front of his base, which will be a problem when new armies come in. Oh, man.
I love it. Just, like, go for the kill, man. Your opponent is still in Feudal Age. You got a big army right in their base. Just, you know, put the boot on it. Market's even denied, and this is just... It's really sad because it's been such a great series, and to have such a dud of a final game like this, it just... You feel bad.
It is a bummer, because all the first 3 games were so good. But, I mean, even a show as good as Game of Thrones couldn't figure out how to end it, right?
Yeah.
And so MbL, I mean, he's going to try. He's going to get Lycav and Bloodlines. And this is... I mean, can he engage anywhere with the Lycav? There's camels everywhere.
I mean, MbL's... Somehow it says he's working at 60% eco efficiency. I don't believe that.
I feel for MbL right now. You're just sitting here frustrated. You felt like you had more to give, but things went wrong. And again, credit to Nikov because he's played the perfect game behind it. He has not let MbL get back into this. He had a beautiful opening. I do think that he expected MbL to go Mongols here, by the way, and picked Gurjaras as a counter pick, which would have been really fun to talk about if things were a little closer. The second TC now for Nikov. MbL will counterattack with the Lycav. He's only 7 Vils behind. He is now dropping a town center, but I don't think that town center goes up very easily.
And even if it goes up, it doesn't really secure that many resources. It doesn't feel great no matter how you cut it. MbL still has very little army with which to work. Nikov is relatively well defended at home. I mean, if this was a match where MbL was like the better player decisively, he could still make a comeback happen. But with Nikov playing as clean as he is, I just don't know how you can play from this far behind as MbL.
Nikov, he tracked the counterattack, pushed that away, got his TC up. His eco is looking smooth, and still getting that slow lead. Nikov will understand. I mean, if you have to abandon this many farms, if you have to build that TC, Nikov will understand he's really far ahead. But you can't just all in to go for the kill right now because maybe you'd overinvest, lose your units to a conversion or to the TC. So it's all about patience now for Nikov.
I agree, but at the same time, Forward Siege Workshop and a Gurjara Siege Elephant, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think in general, I'd just like to see a siege workshop on the hill right there. Like,
Yeah.
I just love buildings up on that hill. Also, did you notice MbL escaped with a lumber camp in the south? Because I didn't.
Yeah, that was a cute little move.
I guess that was when the camels and skirms dove.
I
Had to
think it was
save them
lumber
somehow.
camp that the camels are attacking right now in MbL space. He sent those vills to the south before they showed up.
Yeah. The best thing MbL could probably do is bank on the best unit, and that's Mangadai. So I think that's his game plan now. He's on stone. He knows this is rough. So he's thinking if I can get a castle and Mangadai, or maybe like the Mangadai of old, the AOC Mangadai, maybe I can combat this. But even then, camels and skirms, those are good options for the Mangadai. So never going to be easy.
And you're not even getting to the castle at this point anyway. Obviously, it's MbL's tournament, life on the line. It definitely would feel pretty bad from him just to go from being second place in his group, feeling pretty good about the group stage, and then, well, just kind of getting bounced in early on in the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, will be frustrating and disappointing for MbL and everyone who's watched the series up to this point.
Yeah.
But as I've said before, when players stomp, it's not their jobs to entertain us.
No.
It does end up being very entertaining, but Nikov's job here is to win at all costs, and he has punished MbL every single moment of this game. MbL has had no time to stabilize, no time to breathe. He does get some conversions, but he loses a lot of his monks, and Nikov soon going to be a 20 villager lead, and probably either a 4 TC or a castle. I mean, Nikov could do so much more from here.
I mean, anything that is vaguely good will win Nicov the game at this point. Like, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm actually checking right now. So the winner of this series faces Hart.
Interesting.
So it's like, it's AM all the way down, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like this version of Nikov versus Hart, I feel like that's a very compelling series.
I agree. I think Nikov can beat Hart. I think it's a little bit closer. But I think, well, it's hard to say a little bit closer. I just meant in terms of the scoreline. The first 3 games in this series were incredibly close. But yeah, Nikov moves on to the quarterfinal, beats MbL 3-1, and MbL just couldn't get going in this game. You pick the Mongols, you want the hunt. It dies to the TC like that, and it's always going to be tough. But Nikov, 33 seconds of TC idle time, just perfect game.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few, if any, real mistakes that Nikov made this game. And if you play like that, you can make it very, very far in this tournament. And I mean, what a resurgence it would be for Nikov. Even if he beat Hart, and then you could get like top 4 in this tournament at least, like that would be really, really impressive from him.
And it's kind of funny. I'd like to repeat this. So Nikov was had helped train and work with some of the younger Argentinians in Gold League, Lucho and Prisma. And when Lucho was doing really well, and Lucho got promoted to platinum for the next season, he talked to Nikov about it, and Nikov was like, I'm so happy for him, this is so good. And he goes, but he's like, everyone's calling him the next Nikov. He's like, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not retiring, I'm still here and I'm feeling good. So that's Nikov reminding everyone who he is and what he's capable of. He said, don't retire me, okay?
Oh man,
he did also say that if he got relegated to Gold League, he might retire. But that didn't happen.
Well, good.
Yeah, he's playing amazing. And I think it's going to build confidence for him here. The thing that Nikov was also able to do, even in that loss, he played incredible. Sometimes when people lose, they look like they're completely unsure on what to do. Maybe there was a little bit of that with MbL on Fortified Clearing. But I think Nikov's genuinely great on every single map.